up in town. I'm from kind of a very dysfunctional and abusive family. I ended up, after that I joined the Marine Corps, did 2 tours overseas, and I lost a lot of close friends. And then after that, I've also been divorced twice. I've lost everything I've ever owned, and 2 years ago I was in a wreck that nearly took my life. Sorry, I said I'm nervous, so I'm shaking a little bit. But, to backtrack a little bit, growing up, I was always an awkward and goofy kid. I never really knew how to talk to people. I didn't really fit in and didn't have many friends. So I ended up falling into what you call a long-lasting depression. And when I was 17, I figured out, well, it's not a good thing, but I ended up drinking because I realized when I was drinking, I could forget all my problems. In a sense, I could wash them away. That's not really what I was doing, but it sure felt like it. And I guess I carried that mentality throughout life because I drink pretty much daily. And through each traumatic event I went through in my life, it just got a little bit worse and a little bit worse. To the point where I was no longer drinking to wash my problems away. I was drinking because I absolutely had to. I didn't feel normal without it. And fast forwarding a little bit, after my second divorce, I ended up going stay hopping for a little while, or running away from your problems, whatever you want to call it. But I ended up finding myself in Florida, and on the night of January 10th, I went out to a bar, and it was just like every other time. I was doing what I did best. I was drinking to get as drunk as humanly possible, as fast as possible. And eventually it came time for that bar to close. And I know I should have called a friend, but I figured I'd done this a million times before. What could possibly be wrong? What could possibly go wrong this night? And I left the bar, and I remember getting a text message, and of course I answered it, because no one knows how to not text and drive. But when I looked up, I crossed across the double yellow. And so I threw my phone down, and I remember telling myself, you can't do that again. Well, I guess I was too drunk to remember what I told myself, because I think I remember getting another text message, and everything kind of fades to black after that. When I'm woken up, a nurse is asking me, do you know what happened? I told her no. And she informed me that I was in a head-on collision with a semi, that I'd been in a coma for the last week, and that I died 3 times while they were trying to save me. And, and along with that, I'd also broke around 30 bones in my body. To this day, I won't go into a complete list of everything that happened, but it was definitely a lot. I ended up breaking around 30 bones. I have 2 femur replacements, a hip replacement, a rod in my shoulder, 2 on my forearm with extensive nerve damage. I also had my spleen removed and half my liver. And I remember the nurses and doctors, they were telling me that they'd never seen anyone with that extent of injuries make it through the night, let alone through the next week. I even had an ER nurse come in and tell me that there were 2 ER nurses, and they told me they had never visited a patient before, but when they heard that I was alive and awake, they couldn't believe it and had to come talk to me. They told me, someone's got a purpose for you. God's got a plan for you. And he definitely did. That's not the way I seen it. Up until then, aside from the drinking, my life was about fitness and staying in shape. That's all I did. It was one of the few things in life I could control. And now I have doctors telling me I might not ever be able to use my legs ever again. And if I would, they definitely wouldn't work right. I'd probably never gain full use of my left arm ever again. And, it was just on top of all the other pain I was going through, it was almost too much to handle. I ended up falling into the deepest depression I've ever been in my life. After a month in the hospital and 2 months in a nursing home, I eventually made my way back to California, and then that's when I started handling it the same way I always had. I picked up the bottle. And, I sat there by myself day after day. I was pretty lonely. And I was mad. Why didn't I die in my wreck? Why did I have to survive? I had better friends that had families that cared about them. And up until this point, I'd led a self-serving life. I didn't deserve it. It's because I really didn't know what he had planned for me. about 4 months of wallowing in self-pity, wishing that I could kill myself. I decided to come to church one day because, well, I didn't really believe in God, but it really sure beat sitting at home, like I said, wallowing in self-pity. And I knew that the people here were nice people, that they were good people, they wouldn't judge me, and I just wanted to see where it would go. And then after about 4 months of coming here, that's when I accepted God back into my life. Amen. From that point on, my life was changed forever. My life did a complete 360. I went from wishing every day that I would have died in my wreck or killed myself to knowing that God has a plan and a purpose for me. Although I still didn't know what it was yet, I could definitely see it was there. And I believe that purpose is so that I could stand up here today. That way I can share my story with different churches, maybe be able to talk to youth groups, and perhaps one day even schools. But there's two things that I would really like you to take away from this story. First, don't drink and drive, don't text and drive. Definitely not worth it. Never will be. But the second is that God does have a plan for you. No matter what you're going through in life, no matter how hard things seem to be, He's got a plan for it all. It may be hard, but like my wreck, by far the hardest thing I've ever had to deal with. But I wouldn't take it back for the world. It 100% changed me and made me into a better person. I remember who I was before the wreck, and I remember who I am now. And like I said, I couldn't trade that for anything. So, sometimes your blessings come in disguise, and sometimes that disguise can be the worst tragedy of your life. Just remember to stick it out. He's got a plan for everything. That being said, I'd just like to say thank you for letting me speak, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the service.